We continue tonight with a debate that is heating up. Students are back on campus, and since their return, thousands have tested positive for coronavirus. Some universities are sending infected students home, and now the concern is, will the virus then spread to other communities? The choice to scatter students rather than quarantine them on campus is pretty controversial. Let's bring in internal medicine physician Dr. Lamb. Thanks so much, doctor, for taking the time to talk to us tonight.
Oh, thank you for having me on tonight. I appreciate it.
Of course. First question for you. Do you think by sending infected students home, it could increase the spread of COVID-19?
Yes, it is dangerous. We saw this in the very beginning of the pandemic when kids were out on spring break. College students were out. They came back from spring break. The colleges closed. They then went home. And most of them are going home to parents and grandparents. And I worry that we're going to see the same thing if we decide to close the colleges at this point. We're bringing kids in, we're letting them mix, we're letting them get exposed, and then we're sending them right back out to the community and to the people who are at higher risk than they are.
Yeah, what do parents do if they find out that their son or daughter headed home? Sorry, Mom.
You know, that's unfortunately, that's one of the things they have to talk about is if your kids are coming home, it's a lot harder to quarantine from your child when they're living in the house with you. You know, most kids, if they come home, they're probably not going to want to live in the basement for 2 weeks, you know, or 10 days until they show that they don't have symptoms. And so it does put everyone in a difficult situation. If a student is coming home, they need to quarantine, and they need to quarantine away from their family. So that's one of the difficult things we see is not only the social distancing, but when you do an actual quarantine inside the home, you know, unless you can stay away from your family, you are really putting them at risk.
And that means not sharing the same bathroom, leaving food at the basement stairs?
That's basically it. You really don't want to have a lot of interaction with the kids. And we saw this in New York City as well. One of the problems was when we were having positive patients go home and isolate in place and basically shelter in place with family members, that family members are then in close contact. It's very difficult to try to keep family members at all times 6 feet away from you. It's just not how a family works. And so it's very difficult to try to really quarantine inside the family home away from any contact.
So some schools are deciding to quarantine the students on campus, and they're doing what they're calling surveillance testing. What does that mean?
So surveillance testing means that after a certain amount of time, after a last known exposure, they'll test and see whether you actually have the virus. The problem is, you know, the test isn't 100%, so you could still be missing people, people who may develop symptoms later, or you know, some of these carriers who aren't having any symptoms at all, and so they may actually get out of testing. So unless you're going to test every person who came into contact with them 5 to 7 days later, there's a chance that you're going to miss a lot of students that are having.
Well, Dr. Lamb, definitely a controversial issue, and it sounds like no two schools are making the same decision. We want to thank you again for taking the time to talk with us tonight.
Oh, well, thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.